So who is new Green Bay Packers safety Javon Bullard? Our old pal Baillie Burmaster joins us on the show today for another installment of our rookie orientation series.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. If there was a player from this draft class who I thought was best suited to come in right away and contribute to this team, it would be Georgia safety Javon Bullard, who is a terrific fit in this defense, a terrific fit next to Xavier McKinney, who, by the way, just was on ESPN's list of top 10 safeties, as voted on by NFL decision makers, evaluators, coaches, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he is someone who I think can wear a lot of hats in this defense. He was asked by Kirby Smart in the best defensive program in college football over the last half decade to not only wear a couple hats, to play multiple different positions, play in the slot as a nickel corner and in separate seasons, play as a deep half, deep middle safety, and he did it all at a pretty high level. For more on all of this, I tapped our old pal, she's not old, but we're old friends, Baillie Burmaster, who used to be in Green Bay covering the Packers, and then we had her on 2021, I believe, to talk about the Browns because she was in Cleveland, and she just keeps moving on up, keeps climbing those markets, bigger markets, because she's awesome. She's now in Atlanta, which means Georgia football. So let's talk to Baillie. Joining me now, our old pal, Baillie Burmaster, back again. I think this is the third time and the third different team you are covering, Baillie. Now at Atlanta News First. Very glad to be with you to talk some ball, to talk some dogs. Yeah. I've always known that you've had that dog in you, so this is perfect. So before we dig into Javon Bullard, they SEC, what is their thing? It's just different. Is that something like that, like the tagline?
Yes, yes. It means more.
Yes. Okay. It just means more. I got to get the branding right. Sorry. So you get there and you get a chance to see this up close and personal. They've become this factory of NFL talent. Is there anything like culturally, vibes-wise, like why does that place seem so? Because plenty of places can recruit, but they're actually getting the job done. So have you noticed something different there?
It's Kirby's formula, man. There's no tolerance. It's all discipline. It's all grit. It's super structured. It's I don't want to say uptight in the bad way, but just like it's all business. It really gives more of a vibe of like an NFL team than other universities I have covered. I mean, even for media, we can't shoot practices. The only time we've ever been able to shoot practices is like bowl games. So it's really, it's crazy because I've covered a few college universities and nothing in the SEC, but you always hear, the SEC, it's just different, whatever. I don't think that's the case for all SEC teams, but Georgia is a different breed. And I think you have to give a lot of credit to Kirby's formula of getting the right people in place, bringing in the right players who are just workhorses, but they match that with the talent aspect. And I mean, once you have the winning formula, why would you ever change it?
Yeah. And all they do now is win. They've sort of replaced Alabama as the go-to program in college football. And it's not a surprise that Brian Gutekunst has really liked players from there over the last few years. And that brings us to Javon Bullard, who is now going to compete to start at safety for the Packers, but he didn't always play safety at Georgia. Can you speak a little bit to his evolution as a player there?
Yeah, so 2022, he played mostly slot corner, and was a big part of them winning the Natty that year. I mean, he was defensive MVP in that game. So, when you think about Javon Bullard, he's someone for me that immediately just comes to mind. He's versatile. He can play any position you really need him to. But on top of that, it sounds cliche to say like these guys in the NFL are so athletic, but he really is just the crux of being strong and tough, but fast. So I think that versatility is really what maybe teams were seeing in him and maybe bringing him in. But you saw him play a lot more slot corner in 2022 versus last season he played safety and still really produced. If I'm not mistaken, he had finished with career highs in tackles and passes defended. So, he's kind of proven that no matter where you put him, he can find success. Now, he had a lot of good players around him too, and it is the college level, but who's to say that can't be recreated?
Yeah, and I think it was Devontae Wyatt who said when he got to the NFL, he realized that what Georgia was doing was way more complicated than what a lot of NFL teams are doing.
No,
and
so it's
go ahead.
No, it's funny you say that because that is a consistent underliner of like a lot of the guys that come out of Georgia and end up going to these places. They all say like, oh, nothing's different. Like we've been doing this at Georgia. And I think that goes back to maybe why Gutekunst loved going after all these Georgia guys. And, it's a part to Kirby's formula as well, like we were talking about.
It seems like to have someone play as well as he did, to your point, he was a really good slot corner. I thought that was his best collegiate position. For Kirby Smart to say, well, actually, now we need you to do this, not entirely different thing, but certainly a different position in that defense. Isn't that a stamp of approval in itself that speaks to the intelligence of a player like this?
Well, and think about it. How many times in the NFL do you see players be like, nah, I don't want to, like they won't come out and be like, no, I don't want to play that position. They'll do the whole, well, I'll play wherever coach wants to put me. But the reality is a lot of times you hear the rumblings of, oh, he doesn't want to play this position, so he wants to be traded or whatever. I don't think we have that luxury anymore. I think there is a shift in the NFL of the more you can do, the better. And that's what they want. So they're going to go get proven guys who can do that. So I think it is definitely probably something that even helped Javon along the way.
It does seem like he's the kind of player who can do almost whatever you need. Is there something, though, that you think he is best at in terms of what his ideal role in the NFL would be?
Yeah, I think he can really, and it's for the Packers specifically. I mean, I think he can really be that plug and play guy, just wherever you need it. I think his speed for his position really sticks out to me. I think he had a 4.4 40. Yep. And I liked watching him more at safety, to be honest. I just thought he stood out a little more, but I don't know. I don't cover the Packers enough to know what they're really looking for at this point. But I do feel like, there was a reason when he was at the Senior Bowl, he was voted the top safety and he had just moved from slot corner from the year before. So that's kind of what I see.
Yeah, I think Jeff Hafley is going to, we don't know. We're guessing with Jeff Hafley, right? We're just trying to project a little bit here, but coming from the college game, I mean, I feel like that makes this potentially even a more seamless transition for him because we're going to get some collegiate principles out of him. And it seems like to be a DB for Kirby Smart, and this was true of Nick Saban, you have to tackle. And Javon Bullard, despite the fact that he's, like 5'10", he's got some thickness. He's got a thick lower body, but he will come up and strike you.
Oh no, for sure. And I was going to say, if it's not his versatility that you're looking at, it should be his tackling because it's very just old school. Get it done. He's everywhere. He's swarming around guys. I mean, there's a lot to like about him, and I think it will be really interesting to see how he progresses, and definitely within the Packers defense. But I was thinking about this. He's a Georgia boy from Milledgeville, and I don't know how he's going to fare in that cold.
Yeah,
that's probably my biggest concern. I don't think he's seen temperatures like that before. Because yes, it gets cold here in the South, but nothing like he's about to experience.
I think he said he's never seen snow.
I believe that.
All right, we're going to get to more with Baillie Burmaster in just a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed or power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Do you think there's anything to just sort of the chemistry and the familiarity, even if you didn't play necessarily together, to have these Georgia guys? Because now the Packers are sort of building, they're doing like the Knicks Villanova thing on their defense, because they've got Eric Stokes, they've got I've got them at every level now, defensive line, linebacker, corner, safety, of having these guys who there's something shared that they have.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you're sharing more than just having, oh, I lost my light. Hold on. This is technical. This is what you get. Hold on. I got to move.
This is TV.
This is TV. No, I definitely think, and it's more than just going to Georgia, right? I think you come up on the same shared values and context of what you've learned under Kirby Smart. And I think it's really nice to have that familiarity with someone along the way that, hey, you're going to a place you don't know, but here's a face I know. They can give me the runaround. And, we were boys and dogs in Georgia. You're going to want to bring those people along, make them feel more comfortable. So I think you definitely get more comfortability than maybe you would. I like, the man ever even been to Wisconsin? There's a lot of changes coming his way. I think it definitely is a pro to have more dogs in the locker room that can help him out.
And he's the proverbial metaphoric dog, just like we talked about with you at the top. I wanted to get your perspective now that you've been away from Green Bay for a couple of years. You got to stay covering, you've been lucky that you got the NFL cities where you've gone, Cleveland and now Atlanta. What has been your impression of Matt LaFleur from afar and the evolution? Because you were there early in the Matt LaFleur lifespan, and now, he's kind of moving into a different phase now.
And I think he's dealt with that with such grace. And maybe a grace isn't the word you want to hear for a head coach.
I like it.
But I still stand 10 toes down on where I was on LaFleur the 2 years I was there when Aaron Rodgers was there. I think he's a great coach. I think he's very collaborative. I think he really knows how to be a leader of men. And that's not always something you see. I think Kevin Stefanski, when I covered him in Cleveland, is someone else who had similarities to LaFleur, but at the same time was probably dealt a more difficult hand. So there was a lot of growing pains within the Browns organization. But then when you also look at, where I am now with Arthur Smith and bringing Raheem Morris, there's something to be said about these coaches that come across more personable, that, understand of being collaborative with their players and maybe their quarterback, but also still holding that standard of discipline and accountability. It's a very fine line to strike. And I think it's something that LaFleur has really done really well.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of what you're describing is also happening at Georgia with Kirby Smart, even though that's a collegiate atmosphere. Luckily, we have dropped the veil of amateurism. Like, those guys are getting paid now. And so I think you can run it a little bit more like a business. And maybe that's why we're seeing them having a little bit different feel there. This is also fascinating because Atlanta did a thing that the Packers did in a variation, right? The Jordan Love and the Michael Penix pick for the next week. All I heard was they're doing the Jordan Love. Did you have the same feeling, or were you just sort of like, this is wild? Or both?
So can we recap my experience with quarterbacks in the NFL for a second?
Yes, please.
The first year I was in Green Bay, they drafted Jordan Love. The second year in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers says he's unhappy and wants to be traded.
And was an MVP.
I go to Cleveland, and it's the Baker show until he tears his labrum and everything is on fire. Then they go get Deshaun Watson, ship him to Charlotte, and I covered Deshaun Watson for a year. I come here, and it's Desmond Ridder, and I was very public about I believe Ritter's going to get benched by week 7. People here thought I was insane, but you don't watch people like Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers and not notice that whatever you want to define as it, Desmond Ridder did not have it. And the guy is an amazing guy. It's not personal. It's strictly performance-based. He did not have it. But people thought I was wild for saying that. And then I think it was week 8 he was benched. So then you're going, okay, they're moving on from him. You know, they have to. They get Kirk Cousins, which I thought was probably the best get you were going to get this offseason if you wanted to go the free agency route. And then draft night comes. And I'm like, it's going to be really calm. It's going to be cool. It's going to be collected. Not that anyone cares. I had a wedding that Friday of the draft. And I originally told my boss, like, I'll stay. And they were like, no, you can go. Just, can you be here Thursday? I was like, yeah, nothing crazy should happen Thursday. We should be fine. So like, we'll handle it. We'll cover it. That 8th pick came in. And I just stood up in the newsroom and I was like, everything is way more important than it's supposed to be now. And it's funny because I immediately had the thought of it's the Jordan Love model. And I'm such a minority here. I want to put that out. I am such a minority in this process with this whole quarterback situation because I do think the Jordan Love model is a great model. And I don't hate this. Why? The Falcons have dealt with poor quarterback play for far too long, and it's been the detriment to every season. They aren't going to fail at quarterback again. So how do you make sure of that? You have a veteran in Kirk Cousins who's proven that he can win and has now made you most likely a playoff team if you take care of business. But now, if anything else happens, you have a starter in Michael Penix Jr. who you feel confident in. Now, where fans are conflicted, and I totally understand where they're conflicted, you pay all this money for Kirk Cousins, and then you draft another quarterback, and you're going to have to pay him at some point. It's conflicting. For one of the other to succeed, one of them must fail.
Right.
And that's where everyone's like, what are we doing? But that's the point. The point is we're not going to fail no matter what happens at quarterback. If Kirk Cousins, God forbid, breaks his leg and is done, you're not worried. You got Michael Penix,
right? Who
can sling it, by the way.
Yeah.
Now, is he going to be the guy? We don't. It's too early. Anyone who says they want to say yes or no, it's too early. You don't know that. But I don't hate the Falcons for trying to have a fail-proof method at quarterback to make sure they don't find themselves in a Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke hole again.
All right, we'll finish up here in just a second with Baillie Burmaster. Let's do it. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app.
I just pulled up the text that I found from draft night. I texted you in all caps, "What?" And your response, a single word, "Chaos." So, and that I'm sure that was both true in the fan base. I'm sure it was true in your life professionally, trying to, deal with all the things that you were going to have to do over the next couple of days because of it. But it was, and that's how it felt very much April of 2020. When the Jordan Love pick happened, we were all just sort of like, wait, what are they doing? And it worked out so far. I just remembered as we're talking, that the Falcons played Jordan Love and the Packers early in the season, came back in the fourth quarter. The only game Desmond Ridder ever looked like he had was in that game at the end when he makes like two throws. And of course it's against Joe Barry's defense. But so you were there in 20 when Love was originally selected. We didn't get a good look at him at all because of COVID. He didn't get to play much until that one game in 2021. And then, okay, you see him now 2023 and then what he became. Has any of this surprised you?
I'm a little bit surprised. I'm a very honest woman. I will tell you, I wasn't sold on Jordan Love back then. I do remember talking to his offensive coordinator and one of his former head coaches, Matt Wells and Yost at one point, and they really thought he had it all. And they were like, that he needs to do everything to absorb what he can and learn from Aaron Rodgers while he's there. But he has the ability to, be the next coming that the Packers are looking for. I was still hesitant. And that's the thing about this. You don't know how players are going to transition from college to the NFL. What other things could come into it? Are they going to have the work ethic? Or is the game going to be too fast for them? You just don't know. And I was really pleasantly surprised by the season he had this year. And I was very impressed with him, to be quite frank. I would love to know, and maybe you can speak more on this, is just how much of that is his collaboration process with LaFleur and the acclimation period he had. Because, I think and maybe you guys have talked about it. I'm not as much as in the Green Bay sphere anymore, but the transition from Rodgers to Love to was pretty seamless.
Yeah.
It was pretty, despite all the Rodgers to Jets, like take that out of it. There wasn't a lot of friction there or storylines that I really saw that were problematic. So you have to believe he had a good relationship with Rodgers. LaFleur helped bridge the gap there a little bit because it was like, oh no, are we going to have a Favre Rodgers 0.2 over here, like 2.0 going on. So I think you have to give the kid a lot of credit.
It is one of those things where I don't know what it is missing from the dialogue, from the discourse, from the evaluation process with quarterbacks. It's just so hard. And actually, I wanted to ask you this because I think we've talked a little bit about this off air. Maybe we've talked about it on air. I don't know. But you played collegiate athletics. You've been covering professional and collegiate athletics now your whole career. Why do you think players who are really talented fail?
I used to have this saying about some of the best players. Oh, here we go again. The best players I ever played with, or with just from an outside perspective. You got to be a little crazy. What do I mean by that? You operate on a different level than everyone else. You don't operate in a realm of, I need to be liked. You're okay with being hated if it's for the betterment of your progress, but that attribute within a team as well. Like, if you're doing your best, you're going to push other people around you to be your best. And it's, I think there's a line there though, of you have to have the talent to back it up. You can be a great leader and not have the talent and people won't respect you for it. But if you have the talent and you're also not speaking up about it, that can cause friction too. I think the NFL is so unique because your price tag matters. Okay. I saw this a lot in Cleveland with Myles Garrett, arguably their best player.
Sure.
Makes $1 bajillion. He has the biggest price tag. He is someone who leads by example and on the field. His arm could be falling off and he's still going to go play.
Yeah.
And that's him saying, y'all need to get with it. This is what, we're riding. But he's not always necessarily the vocal leader in the locker room. There were always a lot of reports about him not speaking up, him not talking to guys, him not taking initiative and getting in guys' faces. And that bothered people. And I kind of get that, because if your price tag's lower, someone's going to go, well, who the hell are you?
Right.
So it's a very interesting balance of, you have the talent to back up whatever you were saying. In the NFL, you have the price tag to back up whatever you were saying. You got to just obviously earn the respect of everyone in the locker room as well. But at the end of the day, too, it's figuring out the people around you, because and that's the issue. There are people in the NFL who are just there to get their paycheck. At the end of the day, I'm not going to play. Okay, whatever. No, but you need leaders to grab them and be like, are you trying to win or not? Because if you're not trying to win and help this team get better and help yourself get better, then I'm not riding for you, and you can sit your butt down on the bench. It's that craziness of I don't care. We're going to win at all costs. Are you with me or are you against me? And if you're against me, fine, but I'm going to go tell your coach that, hey, we should put this cat in, this 6th rounder, not this 1st rounder, who's going to give me more of an effort on game day.
I love it. I love when you get fired up, Baillie. You're awesome. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Awesome to catch up with Baillie.
She's awesome. She's just great. And who knows? Maybe next time we'll talk to her. She'll be covering the Jets or the Giants, probably in New York, because no bigger market. It's kind of maybe she'll be at ESPN. Who knows? We'll be back next week. I do know that. Much more with Locked On Packers. I misspoke the other day when I said we were 1 week away from training camp. We're 2 weeks away from training camp. Now we're almost to that point, almost a week away. On Monday, we will be a week away. Just wanted to correct that. So back next week, much more as we head toward training camp, toward getting to see these guys on the field. I can't wait. Javon Bullard is one of those guys. I cannot wait to see how Jeff Hafley wants to deploy him. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. And, of course, we're on all the social medias, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, so you can stay Locked On Packers.